I think your head was in it. But if not, I mean, we don't need
It
your
might be a headless.
Well, you wouldn't be headless, you'd be
I'll just
four headless.
like slump it down like this.
Hey, you're marketing to the current youth.
What's up, guys?
I don't think that's what people want. I'm not. I'm kidding.
It's what everybody wants.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna move.
All right. So what are we here to talk about?
Hey, it's Kay from KCM and Jay from
awkwardly
KCM.
placed on the bottom.
Or under, yeah, I mean,
Off
around.
the page.
Yes, right. In the corner. Today we're here to talk about Kirkland Costco.
Costco whiskey.
Costco whiskey. Because I wanted to. And that was what I decided to do.
You have to.
I think that this is heifer, if that's it.
I don't know. Don't say that.
Don't say heifer. So I think this little petite lady here is new. I haven't seen this before. So for those of you who shop at Costco,
It actually isn't new. They just constantly run out of it because it's
where
so
are you
good.
getting this from?
So one of my friends actually is a religious Costco shopper, and she actually told me she was surprised that we actually got our hands on it 2 weeks ago or so, whenever we got it, because she has been looking for it for months in Costco.
Oh.
She only finds it once in a while because as soon as they get a shipment of it, everybody buys it right up.
Well, that's interesting. So probably should have done more research on this, but Costco does have a blended Scotch without an age statement. This is Costco's Kirkland 12-year-old blended Scotch. I have bought the regular blended Scotch, and although it can be drank, it's not something
It's not lighter fluid, but it's pretty close.
It's not quite something I would ever recommend. Is it cheap? Yes. Is it
Cheap?
McCormick's? No. But if you're buying Scotch, you probably prefer Dewar's or Grant's or Black and White or what have you.
And it's not that much cheaper where it's like, okay, I'm saving enough money for vacation if I buy this versus that.
The hangover won't thank you, let's put it that way. So, when I saw the 12-year-old blended Scotch come around, I thought, boy, we have to try this and see, does this do a better job? Because you pay quite a bit more for the 12-year-old blended Scotch than you do the regular. But
how much was this bottle?
this was about $55, let's say.
And how much was the non-aged thing?
Let's
20?
30? 25, 30 maybe?
Okay.
It's been a while since I bought it.
Just for comparison.
Yeah. So let's say it's twice as much.
And the volume's about the same.
Yes, this is a half gallon or 1.75 liters. Okay? So, just for sanity check, most bottles you buy are a fifth or 750 milliliters. So this is 2.25 times larger than a fifth. And a bottle of Dewar's right now probably runs you $18 to $19 in Michigan. So it's a little bit more expensive per volume than a bottle of Dewar's, but not much. Okay, so with that said, unfortunately we don't have a bottle of Dewar's here for comparison, but I wanted to give this a try.
We do, but it's an old.
An
it's
18
not a
year,
it's a
yeah,
non-traditional Dewar's.
I don't even know where that's at in the shelf. Can't see it because it got shuffled around. Anyway,
It's somewhere up there.
so the point of this review is to sit down and give it an honest shake. Now, obviously, I've already given it an honest shake, but
Have I tried this?
yes, you have.
Okay. Well, I don't remember it, so it's gonna be.
It's going to be
very
authentic.
honest shake.
Yes, this is very typical. A little information on it, because that's all we get is a little information. So there's a company mentioned on here, Alexander Murray & Co. In Aberdeen, Scotland. So they're apparently the ones who blended and did this stuff to make this happen. They don't tell you whether or not this is non-chill filtered or natural color. Looking at that, what do you think?
Looks like it could be a little colored.
Yeah, probably colored.
It looks a little bit orange.
It's got a little orangishness to it, unnatural hue. It's 40%.
Just so you guys know, this is very typical of Kirkland too. So I have a couple of friends that work at Costco, and this is kind of what they do. So they don't have any of their own factories that make any of this stuff. They hire factories that compete or actually are owned by, like, just an example, like they're making toothpaste, like a Crest toothpaste. They would either hire Crest to make their own formula brand to compete with Crest, or they would go to one of Crest's competitors and ask them, hey, can you make a mimic formula of this? So this is really common that Costco would kind of buy from a distillery. It's not like Costco has their own distillery.
Correct. Well, it's a blend anyway, right? So we know it's coming from different distilleries around, but even the blending process is probably it is outsourced to a different company. Yeah, it's
probably owned by somebody else. This is not.
So
Costco doesn't know.
Here we go.
Yeah, it looks very orange just looking at the glass. So I would think that this had colorant in it.
I think it's a safe bet. It's 40% alcohol by volume. There's nothing special.
That's pretty low.
About
That's
this.
the minimum. Just so you know. They're not achieving an A in class. They probably have a GED.
Stop it.
If you didn't watch the last video, this is a joke from last week.
So now you have to watch the last video, and you have to wait like 28 minutes before you see that joke. It's so worth it.
So hope you got some time on your hands.
Treat it like a podcast. Let's do it during work. Our faces are.
Yeah, you don't need to see the face.
Okay, so right off the bat, as we're smelling this whiskey, as we're talking about it, well, first and foremost, do you remember at all the old Kirkland Scotch, the non-age statement?
I do. I remember it smelling a lot lighter, and I feel like it was a lot more fruit-based than this one.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was a lot more lighter fluid-based.
That too. You definitely could light that one on fire. Burn, baby, burn.
So what you get, you do get a lot of, it's kind of rich and dark in smell, and
it feels like the same. So this is a really weird comparison, but if you think of like a cinnamon muffin, like it doesn't smell like a cinnamon roll or anything like that, but the depth of the like flavor that you smell, it's like that same warm, confectious, like dough of a cinnamon roll, but without the cinnamon.
This is what you get when you invite your wife on to talk about whiskey.
She ruins the video.
Because women probably understand what she's saying in full detail, but I don't have a clue. So I agree with you, honey.
Thanks, baby. He knows just what to say.
If we boil it down to basics, I think what we can say is that there is a definitive gap in quality between the old whiskey and this one. And you don't get, whereas in the old whiskey there's quite a bit of alcohol burn in the scent and quite a bit of roughness or like rush distillate.
This one's very soft.
It's soft,
very
it's balanced, it's almost a little sweet, right?
Yes,
it's almost.
That's why I was talking about cinnamon roll dough. It's like it's infectious.
You have something on the brain? Do you feel it?
I'm craving cinnamon rolls. Okay, I'm sorry. The local donut shop open?
24 hours.
This might be a really long video. We should leave and come back with cinnamon rolls.
Don't even stop the button. We got
just let go.
It really is. It's so. If you're wondering when you see the price difference, and then you wonder, am I actually getting anything different? They just put a 12-year on it. Absolutely. I think
worlds different.
Really a different whiskey
100%
entirely.
different. Not even cousins. Like, they are wildly different.
So let's talk about fundamentally what we get. And we'll remove it from other Kirkland Scotch so that you can understand what you can expect from this just in general. It is very sweet. It is sugary sweet.
It is sugary sweet. But it's not like you're tasting sugar. You're just tasting sweetness. It doesn't feel like so sweet that it's making my tongue sick. It's just...
Well, it's still Scotch, right? But as far as Scotch is concerned, this almost has an artificial layer of... This really works very well, that I found, for like if you want to put it on ice and have the water kind of lighten up the flavor. And in fact, I'll put a little water in it, even though it's 40%. I'll put a little water in it to
see what it's got on.
Yeah, well, and maybe cut some of the thickness of that sweet down. I don't know. So there's really, when you buy whiskey like this, you're thinking, all right, is this something you could drink neat? Is this something you could drink on the rocks? Is this something you'd feel comfortable using in a mix? I think those are the three questions you want to ask. When you look at the old Kirkland Scotch, or the one that I'm familiar with, the one without the age statement, I would say, is it comfortable neat? No.
No, not good at all.
No.
Just
is it comfortable on the rocks?
No.
You can live with it, but it's not a pleasant drink. Can you mix it? Yeah,
probably.
Sort of. Yeah, right. Will you like your hangover the next day? No,
probably
not really.
In comparison to this one,
okay.
You could totally drink this by itself.
Yes, you
This
could.
would be great on the rocks. And I know for a fact that this makes a really great mixer. So my friend that I was talking about, who is a shopper at Costco, her dad made this for me, mixed with Coke on one occasion, and then the other occasion, like Coca-Cola, not like cocaine. And
You felt like the audience of this video needed clarification.
I just wanted to make sure. Anyway. And then mixed with 7-Up on another occasion.
I feel like my brain image is changing.
It was really good. It was amazing. It was really good.
I'm not
Much better than
condoning. I will say that we do not here at KCM condone mixing any Scotch with carbonated beverages.
And I would just like to point out that I was not the one that mixed it. I was accepting a drink from somebody else.
This was a forced transaction from the KGB, and
I was
resistance
tied
would have
up.
resulted in death.
Yeah. Yep. But as you can see, I'm alive, and I drank the whiskey that was
It
mixed,
didn't
and
kill her,
I
so-
enjoyed it. So it was great.
It was acceptable.
It was acceptable.
So, as we talk about this, I think those are the three questions we want to answer. And I think we've already said, yeah, you could drink this neat. It's too sweet for me in terms of like.
I actually really like it.
Well, there you go. So that's actually a fair point, because if you're looking at it from an audience standpoint, you'd say, this is for anybody who's having a hard time getting into Scotch.
It's great.
This is
entry
a
point.
good entry level.
Mhm.
It's not rough in the slightest. It
No,
does not have.
incredibly smooth, even though smooth is a very bad word to use as a description for Scotch. It's very drinkable.
It's very drinkable for sure.
Doesn't
So
burn.
if you're wanting to get into Scotch and you find stuff a little rough, but you don't want to spend the money, I know you're kind of buying all in with the half gallon, but it'll last. Yeah, I mean, if you drink it reasonably, it'll last you a long time.
Yeah, drink responsibly.
I mean, and I always think of it as in terms of, would you want this as a standard shelf whiskey? You have guests over and people don't want to drink whiskey. would this be a good one? I would say absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this would be like a staple, right?
Right.
I mean, whenever you're having friends over, pour a glass. It's a very enjoyable whiskey, very good. Pretty much everybody is gonna be able to enjoy it, but it's not gonna break your bank buying it, and you're not gonna feel guilty giving it out to anybody who, you know, doesn't appreciate whiskey.
Yeah.
Because it's at a reasonable
if
price
you got
point.
like your Costco credit card, then you get some.
Just
like...
ring that shit up.
Yeah,
Get that
there we
2%
go.
back.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah, so the other thing is, so we've talked about mixed drinks. This works really well in a rusty nail. Part of the reason is because...
Wait, tell them what a rusty nail is.
So Drambuie, we've actually, why don't you grab the Drambuie? It's right there. You see it?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll add this to the discussion. Most people who drink Scotch probably know what this is. Drambuie is a liqueur. It's 40% alcohol by volume, but it's basically Scotch whiskey, heather honey, herbs, and spices. Okay? So normally a rusty nail is 1/4 of this and 3/4 of Scotch. So it's pretty much straight liquor with some spices with it. I mean, if you just wanted to take a small drop of, not much at all, because, I mean, this stuff, first of all, Drambuie is pretty expensive on its own. Sorry.
You don't need to look at it.
Do you want a little bit?
No, I'm enjoying this just the way it
Okay.
is.
You can just add a little bit of Drambuie, which has that. It's still sweet and it works really well with this, but it adds a little bit of that kind of depth that maybe the whiskey itself doesn't have. Because, I mean, you wouldn't say this is terribly complex, right?
No, it's not. It's not a complex whiskey. It's an enjoyable whiskey.
Right. Exactly.
You don't have to put a ton of thought into enjoying this whiskey. You just drink it, and it's enjoyable. It's simple.
So just try this, just as it is.
This is the Scotch with a little bit of Drambuie.
Just a smidge of
It
Drambuie.
smells really good.
Yeah.
It
So
smells phenomenal.
typically when you're doing like a rusty nail, you put it on the rocks or whatever, but
That's really good. That complements that really well.
right. So the sweetness it doesn't overpower, but
No.
it complements very well with the
Melts
heather honey and
together
everything.
really well.
So what's the bottom line? We could talk about this some ways of Sunday, but I think the bottom line is that this is
It's a good purchase.
it's a good purchase.
KCM
KCM
J
approved.
approved.
Yes.
You
I think
forgot
this
the
is
J.
yes
Forgot me.
KCM J
You have to
approved.
lag behind when you announce the J, because I came later.
You ship back all the glasses, write a J on them, on the back side. If you're on the fence and you're thinking about buying this whiskey, I wouldn't want to drink this neat every day.
No.
It's too sweet for me. Not because it's actually rough or hard to drink neat. It's just too sweet. So
just for some context though, Kay from KCM, he really enjoys whiskeys that are much more complex. So he is a little bit biased because he leans towards valuing complexity more than drinkability at times.
that's true.
So
That's a fact.
I think that for the average person who was not that familiar with Scotch, this probably would be something you would love to drink every day.
Absolutely. Your entry level Scotch, this is 100% where you go. This is perfect. It's a large term initial investment, but lastability. I mean, because again, if you're
like you're drinking that much of it either. I mean, this is
ounce,
not a
ounce and a
decent.
half.
This is a decent pour.
Yeah. So if you're on the fence, KCM would recommend you give it a try. Even if it's not your favorite whiskey, it's not one you'll have a hard time drinking. So low risk purchase, really well recommended. 100 times better than the other Kirkland Scotch. For whatever the money difference is, I don't care.
If you
Spend the
happen
extra
to
money.
have like an unopened bottle of the other one on your shelf, just throw it away. Don't even bother opening it. Make some homeless person's day. Just throw it right out.
All right. That's K and J from KCM Spirits. Thank you for watching. And she's going to do the honors of turning off the camera. See you next time.